Good morning, everybody. I am back. This is A Marvelous coming to you with those topics that definitely make you say, Thank you for tuning in. I definitely appreciate your attention and your time because those are two things you cannot get back. And I encourage you to start the conversation, no matter how awkward it is, start the conversation. Also, just want to let everybody know to let these ads run. Helps me out, helps me create better content. I have a lot of things coming, so look out for that. So today we will be talking about hip hop's current civil war. There is a civil war going on in hip hop between the so-called nerds and weirdos and the so-called gangsters and all of that stuff. So we're gonna be covering that and seeing who can come out on top, or if there is even um, an either or. Does hip hop need both, or does hip hop need one? So this is called Revenge of the Nerds versus the Gangs of New York. And why New York? Because you don't see this kind of separation in other places. For instance, you see a Kendrick Lamar, someone that's, not seen as gangster, but obviously has gangster ties with Compton and everything. So he has like the best of both worlds. But his audience isn't really the gangster audience. It's more so like people that's not really into that life so much. Pops, in the mainstream and things like that. So it's a big difference. So in hip hop, right now there's a lot of confusion as to what's going on. A lot of the gangsters are displaced. They're taking a lot of L's. You see Troy Ave, you see a few others. A lot of L's being taken by the hood rappers, and so a lot of people is kind of like not used to the so-called weirdos, as they say, which is a whack term, being in place. But all of this started with Kanye. Kanye is pretty much the father of different type of hip hop. He's the father. Well, really, it's Tribe Called Quest. Tribe Called Quest, they're the fathers of the alternative type of hip hop and that whole Native Tongues movement. Because Native Tongues was all about consciousness, peace, love, and all that good stuff. So they're actually like the grandfathers of it. And then Kanye would be like the father of it. And then the Kendrick Lamars and, those types would be like the grandchildren of the so-called widow rap and the so-called N.O.R.E. rap, which actually had more impact. Well, I can't say more impact, it's equal. So who is best to rule hip hop? And I think Jay-Z is also the best type to represent both, because Jay-Z's a hustler, so-called gangster, arguably the best to ever do it, and he has an ability more than anybody to do songs with every type of person. Jay's all accepting. He doesn't discriminate, you know what I mean? He doesn't go on rants and rampages about how the widows are taking over. He empowers everybody, and that's why he's on top. So maybe people need to learn from that hip hop is not just a matter of either or. Hip hop needs both. Hip hop needs the gangster, and hip hop needs the nerds and the alternative types, because that's what makes hip hop a dominant force, is that it could reach everybody. And the gangster rappers are realizing now that hood rappers, should I say, that all of that excessive hood stuff is not going to work, because people are tired of that. There's no more crack. There's no excessive danger with drugs. We have all type of social media and fancy phones, so you can't be gangster and hood, when you tweeting. So those days are done. So all of the hood rappers need to accept that. Whether you like it or not, those days are done. It was officially killed off by Kanye, especially when he faced off with 50 Cent. See, hip-hop has milestones. And if you look at milestones, you can see the tide changing. When 50 Cent and Kanye West went head-to-head with the Curtis album, and I think Late Registration, if I'm not mistaken, Kanye bodied 50, that was a shift in tide from the hood being on top with 50 and then crossing over to Kanye. After that happened, things started to change. The tide started to change. There was a little resurgence with T.I. and Rick Ross, but stuff is different now. So you can't be all hood and expect to dominate and blow. And I think that was Troy Ave's mistake. It just can't happen. You got to have a mixture of both, or if you're going to be in one lane, you definitely got to empower or work in the other lane. So I think that's important. Um, I think it also died when Nas came out. When Nas came out with It Was Written, and he had those freestyles. It was called the Founders series, and he said, "Forget this hip hop shit. It's all about this. Forget this drug stuff. It's all about this rap shit." And I think when he said that, this was back in '96. That's officially when a shift started to happen, because here in New York, Giuliani was the mayor, and a lot of the stuff that he was implementing was different. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't even sit in the park at night for too long without police coming to harass you. So a lot of the crackdowns when Giuliani came was also the signs in the beginning of the end for all the excessive hood rap. And you could see that transition now. Fast forward 20 years later with Nas, and he's a damn venture capitalist, investing in Dropbox and all type of tech inventions, nerd stuff. No, stuff that we all use and all ruled by right now using these phones and everything. So the real gangsters are the ones that are realizing that in order to be on top, you got to work with the nerds in order to make things happen. Because that's just a natural progression. To be excessively hood when you're 40, 50 years old is a sign of immaturity. Because real gangsters don't talk about it, they make it happen. So, and you're seeing that right now. You're seeing a lot of the hood rappers, they don't know how to transition. They're kind of misplaced. And that's why when you see something like Drink Champs, it's kind of like a sign that the hood rappers, they have to embrace certain nerd things, whether it's the people or whether it's the technology, podcasts or whatever, because that's just a sign that we're in. But for some reason, New York refuses to adjust. New York is the only place that has to be committed to gangster, and that's why you see a lot of other rappers taking L's right now. You see 50 Cent not being warmly received in Atlanta, getting arrested, all type of craziness. It's just L's. So you gotta evolve out of the gangster stuff and kind of transition into something that's higher. You're not gonna make $1 billion being a gangster unless you have an organized enterprise, like the Rockefellers, like the Bronfmans, the Bushes. Then you could be gangster till you're 100 years old, because you're a crime family, an organized crime family, and you're doing it properly. But if you're an individual gangster like these rappers, still talking all that nonsense that they're not doing, you're not going to make it billions of dollars at all. You're not going to be on top, and you're going to continue to take L's. So grow up and face the fact that things are changing. And in regards to the nerds are going to win because they're safe. People like to feel safe, and it relates, and it's opened up to more markets. I personally am not a Kendrick fan. I like J. Cole, but those type of rappers cater to more subject matter that more people can relate to. And being that they have hood influences, they're going to cater to both markets. So in this civil war, you see a lot of the gangster rappers amongst themselves, if they have trouble or beef with each other, that further puts them apart from the masses. While the nerds and the widow rappers, so called, I don't like those terms, they're kind of taking off. They winning their Grammys, they getting their money, they getting more popular, getting their notoriety. So in hip hop, you can't have a separation. There's certain things that's gonna always be hip hop: consciousness, gangster, nerd, partying. Those four elements is going to always be a part of hip hop. And if any one of those elements are removed from hip hop, you're going to have a dark ages. All four of those have to be present. You have to be able to listen to rap, hip hop, and be able to learn and get conscious. If that's gone, dark age. If you're not able to, well, that's going to always be there to party. And if you're not able to party to it, you could forget about it. You're not going to sell that many records, and it's not going to be that influential. So, all those elements have to be present in the overall scheme of hip hop for it to thrive. And as you see it now, a lot of those elements are not there. The conscious part isn't there. The partying is there. The gangster is there, and the alternative weird nerd stuff is there, but not the consciousness. And that's why right now, it's to me it's a dark age. You need all four elements, and you can't go up against each other. The hood rappers and the nerd rappers, they can't battle each other. They can't have this kind of separation, calling each other weirdos and names like that. It has to be an integrated type of thing in order for it to thrive. So that's why I wanted to make this video, because in hip hop civil war, whichever one doesn't embrace the other is not going to win. But right now the tide is different. It's in the favor of the nerds. So the hood rappers have no choice but to break forth and, I don't want to say conform, but they have to learn to work together because they're not in power right now. The nerds are in power. And that happened, actually, the seeds of that is because in real life, the nerds are winning. It's not the hood. The nerds are winning overall. We have iPhones. We have, galaxies. We have fancy technology. All of that was started by nerds. And even the most gangster people have this technology. So no matter how hood you are, the fact that you're using these nerd inventions, you're conforming yourself. And this happened even with the movie Revenge of the Nerds, which came out in '84. I believe that was the same year that Microsoft, I think, came out with the Macintosh, I think, came out. In the same year the movie Revenge of the Nerds came out, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a sign that things were changing, and that was also the decade of crack. So the 80s was in the 90s, 80s and the 90s was the time when the hood and the nerds can simultaneously be in charge. The 90s was the last time that the hood could actually have a high prominence in the world and make a big impact where they would get no backlash because they had crack. And they had guns in the 90s. So between crack and guns, that was the last time the hood can actually be in power and actually take over with the nerds, especially in music, because crack and guns made for good music. But since you have pretty much crack and guns in the hood isn't as big as it was in terms of violence. It's still big, but not like it was, because the 90s was the worst. The music is different. So the tide has changed. So who's going to win hip hop civil war? Right now, like it or not, the nerds are winning. So shout out to them. The hood gotta embrace. That's just what it is. You don't like it, you're gonna continue to take L's, get caught, arrested, all that stupidness, as opposed to embracing it and making that money, like Hove is doing. Hove is the best example of how you could be a hood person and still work with everybody to get your message across, make the money, and dominate cross culture. So let that be a lesson. In hip hop civil war, in the music, right now the nerds are on top. So I suggest the hood get together, start using these nerd inventions, get your message across like Drink Champ. N.O.R.E's doing a great job of that. You know what I'm saying? He's a hood dude, and he's having great interviews, and he's using technology to actually be himself. So N.O.R.E right now, I think it might be one of the leaders of the hood. He's the one that gets it. So kind of follow his path, and you kind of see, and Snoop also. N.O.R.E, Snoop, Daz, you know what I mean? These individuals are hood, they're being themselves, and they're actually getting money in hood ways, whether it's setting up legal ways to dispense marijuana. That's how you win. Not by excessively clapping people on music and not setting up platforms where you can actually expand your money and your fan base. So shout out to Snoop, shout out to Dash, shout out to N.O.R.E. Those are the hood people that are actually, and Jay-Z and Nas. Those are the hood people that are winning right now. They're actually setting a blueprint for how you could be from the streets and still embrace all this nerd stuff and still be yourself. Everyone else that's not doing that, you're going to continue to fall off. So shout out to the nerds for being on top. Congrats. And that's that. So I wanted to do this video because it's a lot going on, and I think it's important to put hip-hop in this kind of context of what's going on right now. So with that, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming by. Peace.